Digging Deeper audience, it is so good to see you guys again. We took a break that feels like it was a million years long. I feel like I haven't seen you since last year.
Try again.
Oh, nobody? Okay. All right.
Dad jokes.
Yes, I don't even know if that's a dad joke. That's just a bad joke, but we all use it at least once or twice or 10 times.
Try not to.
Who was bummed that church got canceled at some of our campuses and we couldn't use the "see you next year" at the end of the church service?
Yeah, no,
best
I mean,
line ever.
Probably.
Luckily, we have a Facebook page, so we could just drop it there,
my
but
gosh.
I didn't. That was wild, though. A fun snow day for us. Joe, I know. Yeah, we were teaching that day, and so
No, we were not,
Well,
actually.
yeah, we were not. You know how you pray, like, Lord, please close my mouth if you don't want my words to be shared? I think he went ahead and finally cashed in on that and was like, I don't need any of this.
Snowpocalypse.
Snowpocalypse. Good fun week. That kind of kicked off a week-long vacation for all of us at the church. That was a lot of fun.
Amen.
So you are here with us, and if you've been here with the Digging Deeper podcast or River Valley podcast, we like to take this first week of January and actually interview some people for just their favorites of the previous year. Nat has been a long-standing guest all 3 years. The first year, actually, you were the host because Digging Deeper didn't exist.
Whoa.
And so Frank and I were your guests.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, funny, if you do follow us, it was the same lot of people last year for the best of 2020, which I'm surprised we could actually come up with favorite things from 2020.
That was a hard one.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing from 2020 was the hope of 2021. But we're here, and
I just used all my same answers from last year.
Yeah.
That's okay.
yes. So today this is going to be kind of different than our normal Digging Deeper podcast, but it's still going to be good. We're just going to kind of unpack our favorite books, our favorite podcasts, TV shows, movies. So a little bit of resources for you guys, and then also, just more of our personal lives, and our favorite movies won't necessarily be a resource. And then a question I'm asking them is their favorite headline of 2021. So it'll be fun. So let's get right to it. Tyler, we're going to start with you. You're a book guy. You
Mr.
like
Library.
books. Yeah, Mr. Library. I'm not going to guarantee that you've read more than all of us, but I'm going to guess that you read a lot. Favorite book? Kick us off.
Well, I have 37. No, just kidding.
Yeah, because I also know, Nat, you're a mega reader too.
I've in the last few years I've become more of a reader. Yeah.
Yes. So I wouldn't guarantee that you read more books than anyone here, because I wonder if you challenge him.
I think Tyler reads more than me, but
Okay.
I definitely.
Frank reads more than me.
Yes, Frank reads more than I think our whole
Bible
pastoral
Daddy.
staff combined.
Yeah,
Probably.
he does read a
Shout
lot.
But Frank's not here. You are.
Yeah.
Favorite book?
So maybe my favorite this year was called "Live No Lies" by John Mark Comer.
Okay.
And just a really good book about it's somewhat about spiritual formation, but mostly about just the lies that our flesh, the world, the devil tells us, and how to battle against them. And I just really appreciated his book. Very theologically deep, but it's also like a fun book to read. There's pictures. I like pictures. More just like sketches and stuff. But just the book's so well designed. There's huge spaces, so you get through it fast.
Yeah, he's I don't know if that's the best word, but a fun writer.
Yeah.
Like, just it's a fun read, but it's not always fun because it's really like powerful, like deep stuff that goes to the core. But I mean, I think if you've read a few of his books, like that's can describe a lot of what he writes. It's just like, wow, yeah, like he makes reading fun for people that maybe don't like to read. So.
Yeah, that wasn't any of you guys', was it?
It was going to be, but whatever.
Wait, really?
That's right. I got more.
So wait, Live No
Sorry,
Lies, was
Joe.
that kind of his final thing before his sabbatical? Did he kind of write that?
Yeah,
Boom,
and his he's kind of stepping back from church ministry and doing more of a parachurch ministry on spiritual disciplines.
Cool.
Yeah, it's good. What was his line in that book? It was, it's not that. It's there's like an iconic line in that book where it's like, it might be on the front cover, but it's something about like, it's not that we, it's, oh my gosh, I'm totally losing it. What is the line? It's something about how we like live these, we walk in these lies without, okay, never mind. It's not that we tell lies, but that we live them or something. It's not something like that.
Not the lies we tell, but the lies we live.
That's it, Joe.
there it is,
Yeah.
Joe.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, and that they're not lies to us, and that's like very problematic in our walk with God. Like when we don't identify those. So that's good. I've just watched his podcast on that on that, but I need to read his book.
It's really good.
So listeners, if you have your pen and paper out, which I hope you do, that's the first one, Live No Lies, John Mark Comer.
And quick caveat, there's also a book by Rod Dreher called Live Not by Lies, which is also, I'm reading it now, it's pretty good, but not the same book.
Okay.
So Live No Lies is the book I'm recommending,
Wow.
but Live Not by Lies is pretty good too.
That kind of reminds me
couldn't
when
have,
like
I know.
To each other, like
like what is it? White House Down and
Olympus Has Fallen,
Olympus Has
yeah.
Fallen came out at the same time, and they're like, all right, we got to change the titles. They're very similar but
But it
different.
Same movie.
Yeah. Okay, so Nat, kick us
Nice.
off on the couch. Favorite book?
Oh, yes. Okay. So, yeah, I actually brought it, you guys.
Wow.
So,
show and tell.
this is called Water from a Deep Well. I'm going back to school. I'm in a seminary program, and we got this assigned to us in a spirituality class that I was in. This author, he's a professor at Whitworth University up in Washington. Little background on this author. This is really sad, so sorry to drop this on you guys, but he was in a car accident with his wife, mom, and daughter. Got hit by a drunk driver, and his wife, mom, and daughter all
Jeez.
passed in this car accident. And this was back in the 90s. And I'll share why I'm sharing that because he talks about it in the book. But pretty much this book is about just the beauty of different types of Christian spirituality through history that people have practiced in different generations. A lot that we're not used to here in the 21st century. So it talks about Christian martyrs, the early Christian martyrs, desert fathers, monasticism, mystics, medieval lay people, all the way up to the Reformed, and then us as evangelicals. And I love it because it shares the rich history of a lot of these movements. And we can learn a lot from different Christian movements, there's like thousands of ways to seek God. And we get stuck in a rut sometimes, I think, to think that seeking God is just in a morning quiet time or just reading your Bible or just praying or something like that. But like these traditions teach us a lot about how Christians worshiped God in different time periods with different governments and different problems and, different struggles that they had. And so I loved it. But he talks about visiting a monastery when he was really grieving with his wife, mom, and daughter all taken in the same moment by a drunk driver, and how that like saved his life, just visiting a monastery for like a year and just in quiet. And I, for one, am really like, I've been really interested in monasticism and in Christian mysticism, which I know that sounds a little new agey. It's not, but very like contemplative spirituality is just really interesting to me. And so I just learned a lot from all the different ways we can seek God. And so I loved this book like so much. I'd love to meet this guy. So Water from a Deep Well is what it's called, by Gerald L. Sitzer.
Yeah,
I wanna-
That
I
last
wanna-
name looked kind of fun.
I want to
Sitzer.
borrow it.
I know.
Yeah,
Fun.
Well,
Or not
how
fun.
much is
Great. Fun time.
Well, and they're like, I think there's no doubt about it that there's like some of these movements there's weird stuff that some of these people saw. I mean, the Desert Fathers denied themselves any sort of pleasure. They fasted all the time. They thought life should be lived and always struggling. And I don't think
I like the one guy who went up on a
Simon
little pole.
Simon the
He went up on a
Stylight.
pole for 37 years.
Yeah.
And like lived up on a platform, like a little treehouse platform.
He didn't come down for 37 years.
And-
He is to the extreme.
Well,
I
he
know.
just went to like
Way
get
up
away
in
from people, but then people would like come
came.
hear the word of God from
Yeah.
him, and very weird.
And we have a tendency to like probably lean. I think there's no doubt that some of these movements, there were weird stuff that happened, but the author chose to focus on a lot of the good stuff in these movements. And I think it would do us well to focus more on like good stuff and not throw them all out if there was some weird stuff in them. You
Like
know what
spend
I mean?
an hour up
Yeah.
there, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe just spend an hour on
Spend
a
an
pole.
hour
So-
without your
Yeah.
phone.
So now what you're saying is we hear these things and we're willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Oh, that was a weird thing they did, so nothing they said could be good.
Yeah, well, and I know people, there's some of these movements have some weird stuff attached to them, and I think it's easy to, just to throw it all out, but we can learn from even other religions and how they, do things. So,
Yeah, discernment's there for a
Yeah.
reason for sure. I think it can be
but
applied.
this specifically is Christian spirituality.
Yeah.
There's not other religions in
Right,
here.
right.
So,
Just takes a look at them.
Yeah.
Cool. So water from a deep well.
yeah.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah. I think next year, Tim, for our review of 2022, we'll just do a book review, like a little
Yeah.
book club action. We can sit here all day probably.
Yeah.
And
Oh, we'll
dissect
get
some of
time. Yeah.
these.
Oh, yeah.
Like
That'd be
John
fun.
Mark Comer's book deserves some time. That's some rich stuff. And so because you stole mine,
Sorry.
I knew you were going to too. I was like,
Yeah.
I should probably ask Tyler what his is going to be.
I
Okay,
could have
we'll
done a different one.
It's all right.
We'll let
it's
you
all
go
right.
first on the
But
podcast
I'm
one.
gonna,
You can try and steal his.
I'm going to springboard kind of towards what Nat was saying, and I want to kind of maybe not give a book per se that you would sit down and maybe read page by page, more of like a devotional guide that we picked up for student ministry team this year, and that Nat actually recommended, and I've really loved. Pete Scazzaro formulated it, wrote it through the Emotionally Healthy Leadership network of stuff that they have, but it's called Day by Day, a 40-day journey, and so it's a really quick devotional guide, but it's in that book form, and it's really good. The idea is to practice silence and solitude for 2 minutes, then to read a scripture, then to consider some questions, then to say a prayer, and then to spend 2 more minutes in silence and solitude. And it's a great intro into silence and solitude. It's a great intro for someone who's just looking to maybe kickstart into some new habits, some new rhythms with the new year, as we as a church begin to look at spiritual formation and spiritual disciplines in the coming months and weeks. That'd be a good tool to pick up maybe if you're looking for something different that's not just like sit and read a biography or sit and read a pastor's thoughts on God, the flesh, and the devil, but maybe something more just tangible that's a little quicker to bite size for a day. I'd recommend that one, Emotionally Healthy Day by Day, Pete Scazzaro.
Awesome.
Really curious to see where our pastoral staff at our church would be without Pete Scazzaro, because I feel like we're all. I mean, his name is tossed around so much.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
And where would Pete Scazzaro be without the early church fathers?
Whoa.
Sorry, yeah.
very
he's-
true.
Anyways,
And where would the early church father? I got nothing.
Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah. So for me, Rachel and I, we did kind of like what we call preventative counseling. We would do it with the counseling pastor here, Doug Gare, and his wife. And so we were going through this book. We did it before we had the baby. We haven't met up with him since, but it's called DNA of a Relationship for Couples. There's a DNA of a relationship, and then there's one specifically for couples. And what it is, and I'm forgetting their names. I just wrote down the title, but it was interesting because it's written by 2 marriage counselors, and so they wrote this book, and it is a fictional kind of a narrative of fictional marriage retreat with 4 couples. Now the 4 couples I think are based on kind of clients and stuff they've had over the years, but it's basically 4 couples whose marriages are all hitting the rocks for a different reason. So infidelity, just kind of the flame running out, a marriage had a death in the family, and so that's hit them. And it just kind of goes through this week-long retreat of these couples and kind of unpacks their sessions. And so it's fictional, but it's all based on kind of real things. And so you find yourself relating. They're written in a way you find yourself relating to a couple, kind of the one couple. There's a go-getter who's the wife, and the husband's kind of a deadbeat, fun-loving guy, works at a Boys and Girls Club or something. And
I'm just
yeah, no, Rachel's like, that one reminds me of you, but it's because I used to work at a Boys and Girls Club. But I was like, I literally out of the 8 people in this is the guy I relate to.
That's a great book. I read that one too.
Yeah, no, so it's fascinating just to look at that. And at first I was kind of like, okay, the guy says this and people's response aren't going to be this, but the responses are very real. And it just kind of chronicles a weekend or something, and it's a good thick book. So
There's a couple at our church that went to one of those conferences.
Okay.
And it was really good for them.
Yeah.
With those 2 guys.
yeah, that's awesome. That's that's my read for the year. It was good.
Nice.
And DNA of a Relationship for Couples. Again, spacing on the authors, but
Greg Smalley, I
Smalley,
think.
yes, yeah.
sounds like a Smalley. Isn't he a relationship counselor or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, they both are.
Or
Yeah.
is it okay? Cool.
Yeah. All right. So, Joe, we're going to start with you
Uh-oh.
so that nobody steals it and you don't
Yeah,
whine
please.
about it. No. Favorite podcast?
Man.
I think you and I might have the same.
Are we thinking podcast episode or show?
I think series. And I know,
So, yeah.
I have a feeling the one I'm thinking of probably going to get said, but it's cool.
Okay, well, I'll go with one that might be just in the same train of thought, going with the Scazzaro theme. I've really loved his, in this last year especially, I've really appreciated his Emotionally Healthy Leader podcast. I think because he really ties in, he brings in some content that's for right now as a leader or as a father or as just being a person trying to follow Jesus. But he really hits a broad audience. it's not just a leadership podcast like a Carey Nieuwhof or a Craig Rochelle leadership podcast. It's not just like that, but it is kind of something you can apply to any area of life. And so I really appreciate, again, Scazzero, I'll just throw his name one more time out there. I just think it's worth a listen. It's worth putting into. I know you guys probably have some other ones I would also say, but his was, I think, for me in 2021, like it was a little bit of a lifeline at times. Like, man, like that was a word I needed right there. Like sometimes he just throws in like a sermon from 5 years ago that just fits maybe a thing that he's seeing in society and culture and leadership, and just hits on the nail for me. So yeah, I think that was probably for me, that was a really good listen in 2021. Yeah.
I want to see if Scazzero can be your answer for every single one, which makes me really excited for the favorite song or album. No, I appreciate that. Yeah. And I love his stuff because it's not like a one and done read. Like that could be an annual read, and it's still going to give you like solid reminders. So cool. Well, let's move over on the couch. Nat?
Well, I had a podcast I liked and didn't like.
Right, okay.
Oh.
You guys know me. I listen to a lot of Christianity Today. And I'll probably say The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. Go ahead.
Does that go in your like or didn't like, or are you going to?
No, I liked and didn't like it. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Okay. So like, no, yeah. I actually, no, I liked it. It wasn't that I didn't like the podcast, but I didn't like how it made me feel, I guess.
Gotcha,
so
yeah.
like, but I mean, I just wrote out a little bit of it. So yeah, I'm sure many listeners have listened to this, maybe not, but kind of outlines the rise and fall of a church in Portland and Seattle, that area of many campuses, and a pastor, Mark Driscoll, and who seemingly had what looked like some developed narcissistic tendencies, kind of one of those cases of celebrity pastor who started out great, and started out, on fire for the Lord with a lot of passion, and then stuff just kind of started changing a little bit, and I don't know what that necessarily was, but I thought the podcast was really fair. Some might not think that, but I think Mike Cosper, the host, he really just got the facts and interviewed a lot of people, and I felt like he was fair, like shared how there was a lot of really great things that happened at this church, and Mark Driscoll had some really great moments too, and maybe was walking with God at some time. And then, the story is the church eats crap pretty much and falls and doesn't really recover, and a lot of people go down with it, sadly. And so, but he kind of outlines how it happens, and there is a lot of fall of celebrity pastors these days, and I think it just sheds light. It was difficult to listen to because it sheds light on so many different things, whether it's how a church is supposed to live on culture, women, how we should talk about marriage. What do we do with people with a lot of power? How should people in power have accountability in their lives? So I felt like it was a very rewarding listen, and it provoked a lot of good conversations with friends and family. And so trying to think if I outlined it well. I think it just shows, giftedness doesn't mean you're spiritually mature, So
right.
I go back and forth on what this did to Mark Driscoll, like how this, like, I don't know. It's hard because you want to believe in fellow brothers and sisters, and so, but no doubt about it, I think this story needed to be told. So.
Yeah, so that was totally my answer too, and I'm actually not all the way through it. I was a little late on the train on listening to this podcast, and the word that comes to my mind, it is just fascinating. I mean, I think if you are interested in, like, I don't know, the functionings of church leadership, and that is not how a church should be led, but it does a good job. And the devil's advocate, I've heard from other people. I don't know if I'm necessarily, it's not a bad word, but like failure porn is how I've heard this described. Like we're eating it up, kind of like it's like a train wreck. Like I just can't stop watching. I love the fact that I'm listening to this. I've heard that. I've heard that the plane was going down, so people just keep throwing their problems on. Oh, well, yeah, I guess I haven't listened to the last one, but people are kind of starting to put the problems they have in their marriages or their lives on him as well. So that's just a devil's advocate. People who said, all right, that was kind of a negative about the podcast. But where I'm in so far, I am fat. Like, this could be one of my favorite podcasts I've ever listened to ever, because it is so well done, in my opinion. I mean, you talk, like, you do not have to question if this dude did his homework, if he networked, he got, like, on both sides. There are chunks of episodes where he's like, people are just like, look, Driscoll went above and beyond for me. Like, this dude gave us a room. This dude kind of subsidized our pay because we're not getting paid well so that we could do ministry. Like, I mean, I think a lot of fruit, so to speak, that like people were empowered to do things came from this church. But I mean, the dude was get on the bus or get out of the way. Like, he just ran over so many people. And I'm just continuing to kind of like even evaluate how I see or how I do ministry. Just as I listen to this, but like, yeah, I have a huge problem with maybe his focus on like men's ministry just was like, I mean, he probably wanted a church filled with dudes with beards and guns on their side, kind of like men's men. And I think we were talking about how many people felt ostracized. Like, the church was huge, but how many people went once and left because they're like, this is not our church. He would not like me. Like, he would think I'm a fill in the blank with a bad word or something. So yeah, I'm like 5 or 6 episodes in. I was telling Rachel to listen to it, and she listened to the first 2 episodes. She was like, I had to take it. Like, this was like, because it'll stir up feelings inside of you. And then 45 minutes later, I walk back in and like she's listening to it some more. It's like, yeah, it's so well done. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. I think you laid the outline perfectly, but yeah, Tyler, I don't know if you have thoughts on that or another podcast, but
No, yeah, it's a very fascinating podcast. I agree with you, and just stirs up some unique conversations and feelings for sure. So I'll do a different one for mine. I really enjoyed, I really appreciated the work of Jordan Peterson, and he had a great series of podcasts this year, mostly just interviews with really fascinating people. And it's a little heady, but it's also just very fascinating. And he's such a great like listener, question asker. He's a Canadian psychologist, so that's what he did before he kind of became very famous. And so yeah, I really appreciated his podcast this year.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, yeah, we spent some good time on that, but I think that's good. So hopefully you wrote those down, guys. Now we're moving on. I'm going to go ladies first on this one. Natalie, favorite TV show or movie?
Okay, this one was hard because there were some good documentaries out on Netflix this year that I really, really loved. But I'm going to go with one that Nicole and I watched together called Made, M-A-I-D, Made. On Netflix, a story of a single mom who's homeless, trying to escape an abusive relationship and just make ends meet for her and her daughter, her 3-year-old. I guess, yeah, it was a really hard watch. I guess it just opened my eyes a lot to a life that I really know nothing about, you know? Those who live on the system, people who live in poverty, and a lot of what people have to endure. It sheds a lot of light on women who are in domestic violence situations, single parenting, homelessness, and how hard it is sometimes for people to truly get off the streets. I think we can be horribly narrow in our minds on certain topics as far as, well, why don't they just do this? Why don't they just do that? And certainly there are situations where, you know, I'm sure we all see worst case scenarios and this and that. And I would say there's great options in our community of Grants Pass for homelessness and all of that. But this show just gave me a huge new perspective on a lot of these issues that we might think are more black and white, but there's a lot of gray areas, especially on domestic violence and homelessness and single parenting and all of that. And even just what abuse is, you know, like we might think abuse is just hitting or something, but it can be verbal, emotional, financial, manipulative, verbal, you know, whatever. And so Made, M-A-I-D,
Okay.
I highly recommend it. It was really good. So good acting. And yeah, so that's me.
Awesome. Thanks for kicking us
Did
off.
any of you watch that? Tyler watched it. Tim?
No, I have not watched
Okay.
it yet.
No.
It's on my queue, though.
Is it a documentary or is it a show?
A show.
Okay.
Yeah, but I did see some really good documentaries this
Okay.
year as well.
Right.
Yeah. So
All right, well, let's stay on the couch, Joe.
Yeah, well, I was going to go with the documentary. So when you started with the documentary trail, I was like, oh, great. Here we go again. Someone's stealing. No. Pete Scazzaro made this great documentary. Just
I was gonna be like, no way.
Trick, we got
on Netflix, too. No, I'm totally kidding.
Honestly, you could have said it. I fully would have believed you. That seems like his next step is making like a documentary. or
Yeah,
something,
like a
so.
self-made documentary with a little like solo cam. Yeah, no, a documentary show. I don't watch too many TV shows, but The Alpinist on Netflix, super interesting about this kid out of Canada. he does like free solo climbs. No one knows about him until like he kind of pops up on the radar through some like social media like side feeds. But the kid doesn't believe in social media. He just like loves to live in the woods in his tent and like climb these mountains with no ropes. And it's this fascinating group of guys who they catch him basically, almost like kind of like trying to find the Liger kind of thing. Like they find this guy like out in the woods. They found Bigfoot, they feel like, and then they chase him around and they watch him climb. And it's so interesting.
Wow.
But the first like 30 minutes of the show, of the documentary, your gut is like sunk. Like your heart is like sunk into your stomach. Like you're just like so nervous watching him because they get this drone footage of this homie going like 40, 50 feet up, 60 feet up, 80 feet up. And he's just like hanging out by his fingernails. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, it was so crazy. So the kid's name, though, was like Marc-Andre Leclerc. And they follow this guy and he climbs these amazing things. And I'm not going to give it away because I think it's really it's worth the watch. Interesting situation. I would say it was fairly clean. I don't remember there being like any scenes I'm like, oh, I can't let my kids watch this. But super fascinating storyline of how they found him, how they watched him. He then like falls off the face of the earth, so to speak, in that like he
Bad pun. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, sorry about that. In that like they can't get a hold of him. They gave him a phone like, hey, like call us when you go climb that mountain. We want to shoot it. And he like leaves his phone like in Canada and like flies somewhere with some friends, climbs it, comes back weeks later, months later. He calls back, oh yeah, I just went and climbed. And they're like, where were you? Like he's just this like free spirited dude, and it's like hilarious. So it's kind of comedy, kind of like adventure, kind of thrill, kind of drama, kind of like contemplate. Man, like this guy's living. And what I got out of it was this kid is living like his like what he feels called to do to the fullest. He's all out abandoned after it, and he didn't care what the producers thought. He didn't care what people around him thought. He cared about those who were closest to him, and he cared about what he loved to do. And as followers of Jesus, like it just like hit me like, man, there's an illustration. Like we can be more all out. Like we don't gotta go climb rock faces with our fingernails, but we can definitely push ourselves to live more all out for Jesus in 2022. And so I just actually watched it not too long ago, so it was fresh in my mind for this podcast that we're recording. But I'd watch it, The Alpinist on Netflix.
I want
There you
to
go.
watch that.
It's
I like
fun.
He
that.
actually sold me. It reminds me of literally like the only other climber I can name by heart, the free solo. I think it was more 2020,
Right.
Alex Honnold.
Yeah.
So two things you said. One, those images, like I've watched his documentary a few times, but every time the drone image where you just see him almost like with his back to the ground and then just
Yep.
the valley behind him, oh, my stomach just turns
Yep.
upside down because you're just like,
Bro.
if you sneeze and you lose your grip, you're gone.
For sure.
And you're falling 1,000 feet.
For sure.
And then also that same like mentality. So obviously he has his production company and they're like, all right, let us know when you go. And he lets them know and he goes and he has to turn back around. And then one morning he just goes and everyone catches up and they get in their spots. But it's almost like the pressure of getting everyone on board then going, like you just got to go.
Yeah. And Alex is in this one. You'll like it. Yeah, they interview him because he meets this kid. They do like speed records against. It's so fun. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, you sold me.
Yeah.
Tyler, what do you got?
One fun TV show that I've been watching is called Cobra Kai.
Why'd you guys laugh?
That's so funny.
I laughed because he laughed
I
and
know,
then she
yeah.
laughed.
That's a great
Cobra
show.
Kai.
So if you ever watched The Karate Kid, which that was one of like the first cool movies I ever watched, you know, Star Wars, Karate Kid. These are the movies.
Such millennials.
Oh yeah, the early '90s, right? Or maybe later '90s for some of them. But so it's all the same actors, but 20 or 30 years later. And just kind of reliving old high school rivalries, which that never happens, right? But it's a really intriguing show and an interesting clash of cultures between like their era and the kids these days. You know, but it is kind of funny and if you're nostalgic, you'll appreciate the show. I think if you've seen The Karate Kid,
Right. So I have one, and I'm going to be honest. I forget when I watched this or when it came out, but a Hillary documentary, was that 2020?
Yeah, there's
That was 2020. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was like on the cusp of 2021. Honestly, I might have talked about it the last podcast of this.
I don't
so-
think you did
Okay, yeah, no, that was just a
because
fascinating.
I'm feeling triggered.
Oh my gosh.
Just kidding.
But, yeah, I mean, just a very well done kind of look. I think it humanizes her a little bit, regardless of how you feel about the lady. Just a really good documentary on her. But for me, kind of two. One not made in 2021, but it's World War II in color, and it basically just like restores a bunch of footage of every battle, and so it's got all the big ones. It's got Normandy, Pearl Harbor, Midway, all these things, and it's just restoring all this old footage with like historians and their input, and very well done like narration. And so it's one of those things where it's like 8 episodes. Start on the first one, like Blitzkrieg, all those things, and it just goes chronologically. And you just listen to it over and over
Where do you
again.
find this at? Like,
That's
you
on
watch
the
it at?
Flicks. Yeah, that's on Netflix.
Oh, really?
Yeah, World War II in color, and then there's one that's like in HD or something. I haven't listened to that one, or I don't even know if they're the same thing. But yeah, in color, COLOUR. And then more for the nerd out, like I got behind.
That's not nerdy enough?
No, well, this one's not really like academic, but Marvel Phase 4. So like the new stuff. I mean, Marvel has just like they are the kingpin of movies for the last 10 to 15 years. And after Endgame, they've kind of in the quarantine and stuff, they released a lot of stuff on Disney Plus. And so now, like I was told, hey, if you're gonna watch the new Spider-Man, you got to watch all this before. And I just love how they tie in all of their stuff. Like there's all these Easter eggs, and so I have friends that are really into comics, and I'll just be like, all right, like I got questions, and then they just know more because of the comics, and they'll be like, this, all these Easter eggs, and so
That's fun.
like Marvel, what they have done as far as like creating a good product, and they're making billions of dollars. Like they did a great job.
They're not hurting.
Yeah, they're gonna master the movie realm for quite a while. So yeah, that's just another one. I caught up on that. This week off.
So are you going to watch the new Spider-Man now?
I'm not caught up yet.
Oh,
I still got about 2 movies because
Okay.
they came out with like 7 or 8 shows or movies.
Oh, wow.
That all got released on Disney Plus. So I'm working
Anyone
on it.
seen the new Matrix?
Oh, no.
Crickets.
I gotta watch the
It's
old
okay.
You watched it?
Yeah.
It's all right?
Eric and I went.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
it's okay. It kind of messes with your mind a little bit, but that's what they do.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
No, but I did catch up on all of Keanu Reeves' John Wick's movies, but that's for a different podcast.
We don't endorse any of these recommendations, by the way.
River Valley does not endorse
Any
church.
of these,
No.
yeah.
Like, seriously.
But what we do endorse is your favorite song or album, as long
Well,
as
you might not.
maybe not. If Tupac came out with a new album, we don't want to hear it here, but
He's still alive.
he's probably still
He's in
releasing
Puerto
stuff.
Rico.
Oh, my God.
But let's go with Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Tyler.
I don't really listen to a lot of music, but I'm a pastor, so I feel like I have to say a worship song. But no, really,
Oh, my goodness.
Phil Wickham, "Battle Belongs." I think it was 2001.
Wait, 2021 or 2001?
Sorry, 2021.
like, all right.
Yeah, I don't think it was 2001. I think it's 2021. So really like that one. Great worship song, and that's probably mine. The one
Wow,
that came
I
to mind.
cannot believe that was.
I think so. I looked on the
I mean, it
YouTube
sound-
video today.
It sounds. It sounds right, but it's
Well,
just
like
like
for if it's
To make sure it's
2021.
2021.
Yeah.
yeah. No,
I
mean,
can't think of how it goes. That's how.
When I fight, I'll fight
worship leader
on my
said.
knees.
Oh,
with
yeah,
my
that's a good one.
hands lifted high.
maybe that's
It's a
not
great
out
one.
of the
We're
barn
talking
yet,
about-
but maybe Murphy hasn't quite gotten
No,
it.
no,
It hasn't
we love
trickled
that
its
one.
way out to the
Yeah, yeah.
sticks.
Brian's still in 1794.
No, yeah, we like that one.
I'm kidding.
Haters gonna hate. It's all right.
That's, Brian, if you listen, which I don't think you do, sorry, but you don't. So, Joe.
Song album. This is totally different than a worship song, but it is in the Christian realm. I've appreciated Andy Mineo, hip hop artist, Christian hip hop artist. Really, I've appreciated. He's got like some stuff on YouTube as well, like some almost like podcasts, like just talk show things. He does a good job, like kind of speaking to the cultural moment a little bit, and more from the hip hop scene and from urban America, and just a life I don't live necessarily, but when I lived in Michigan, I worked with some kids in like inner city stuff and with youth there. And so I've always appreciated hip hop culture and urban culture and what comes with that, and the flair and the fun and the excitement and the beat. And so Andy Mineo made a little album called Neverland. This is part 2. It's pretty good. I liked it. So something to curveball of church music, but it's worth, especially if you got young people. You might throw a little Andy Mineo on. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good.
If you play Name That Youth Pastor, guess which one of us? It's Joe.
Wow, bro.
That's not a bad thing. No, it's just more like the Christian rap. Like you're just, that's, I think, what kids listen
You're
to.
in with those kids.
I'm in with those kids.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not throwing barbs over here. I want to
I thought you were
apologize.
making fun of me.
No, I'm not making fun. I
Oh.
wasn't making fun of Brian either. For listeners who heard that, Brian is a fan of hymns. He's a worship leader, always sings hymns. So that's why I made a joke. But I think they're beautiful. So I just felt bad, and I didn't want that one sleeping on me. So, and that wasn't a jab to you. It was
Compliment.
yeah,
Take it.
or
Thanks.
a comment. Yeah, one of the two. All right, Nat, save us. What do you got?
Oh, I'm gonna go with Adele. Adele's new album, y'all.
She's back.
She
Adele
just released
is
it, yo.
back. She has such a good voice. Like, I think she's a great voice and probably, in my opinion, one of the best songwriters of all time. Like,
Wow.
she just puts
Bold.
words.
Some bold move.
She just puts like words to depth of feeling, which I think is great. And she has this piano. Her piano, like, she has a strong piano line in all of her songs. Just
Yeah.
like strong piano presence. And so, I would say like Christian song realm. The song "King of Kings" by Hillsong, so good. I know
that's a
that
good one.
that came out in 2019, but I love that song. Hillsong, man, they got what, 4 verses, 5 verses in each song, but they always, a lot of times they have the full story of the Bible in their songs. And
Sounds
the
like Brian's
gospel.
hymns.
What's
Nice.
that? Yeah,
That's awesome.
So, anyways, good song.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I'll just put my stamp on all of what you guys said. I couldn't really
Wow,
think of
Tim.
anything. I'm going to be honest. What I listen to most, if you go to my YouTube, it's like, I mean, all the like worship songs from the last like 5 years. But what I found myself really like when I'm writing a message or when I'm in the office, like ambiance, like ambiance music.
I'm all about that.
Jurassic World ambiance. Like they got like 5-10
Godzilla.
hour just plays.
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer's best like movie
yeah.
soundtracks. You like realize what movies he did stuff for.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates of the Caribbean. Or I really
know.
sat this last month was like Harry Potter winter ambiance. Like
yeah.
it's just the whole background, and it was just very soothing. So I didn't really have anything like regarding a new album or song.
You probably just inspired someone's new playlist though, like for
It is
YouTube.
just
Like,
great
hey,
for some
some
background
soundtrack action.
Yeah, background, because it's like I know for me, if there's words on what I'm listening, like I can't listen to a podcast while I'm trying to like write something because I just will lose focus. So you get something that has no words, and you're fine. So
Fair enough.
yeah, that's where I'm at. But all right, so we are going to our final question of the evening, morning, whenever you're listening, and I'm curious about this one. And this is a little different than a resource, but your favorite or the most intriguing to you headline of 2021. And if you know if we actually sat and thought on this for a while, it's so wild that things that happened in 2021 that we forgot about. So I'd be really curious to see what you guys have to say. Nat, let's go ahead and start with you if you got something.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, I think Derek Chauvin getting sentenced. I think that was
yes.
very good. And
Jeez. Yeah.
was that?
No, that was
Oh, okay.
I was thinking the whole George Floyd thing. That was 2020, but the sentencing was 20. That's why I was like, holy crap, that was this year.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I think that was it was I think that it was I think there's a long way to go in seeing how we can, end racism, but I think it was important. And then this on a personal note, the Saddleback Church in May ordained 3 female pastors, and they're the largest church in the SBC, so Southern Baptist Convention. And I think that was I have a choke. I'm like I have
really
a choke
emotional.
in my throat. I'm not crying. Yeah, but I think that was really big. I think that was big for. Rick Warren called it a very historic moment in their church, and it meant a lot to me personally, and I think that was kind of cool. So that was in May of this year. So
awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool. The Chauvin thing, like it's pivotal and like it's a huge moment, but you think if that didn't go the way it did, how it would have reset a lot of it could have been really, really bad.
Yeah.
So for that to go the way it did was like pretty neat. And so
2021, wow.
echo everything you said, Nat, for sure. All right, Tyler, what do you got?
Mine's a little more funny. It's a local news article.
okay.
December 10th, 2021.
Yes.
Friendly foul-mouthed crow befriends entire Oregon elementary school before state police are called in.
Yeah,
I thought this was a fake article, like Onion, Babylon Bee kind of a thing. This
satire,
really
yeah.
happened. A crow that could like talk like a parrot and was cussing showed up at Allendale and wouldn't leave.
Yeah.
And the state police were called.
What?
This is a real thing that happened.
Yeah.
In Grants Pass?
At Allendale.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
So
I didn't know
That's terrible.
I didn't know crows could talk.
yeah, no, seriously, like, I was
Like-
like,
Talking crow, cussing crow, and he's like eating the food and like
Is this like in like Revelation somewhere? Like the talking crow
So
shows.
weird.
What the heck? Are you
that
serious?
has to be the best headline of the year.
Yeah.
so
What'd they
was
do?
was somebody missing this? Like, all right, we have a lot of questions.
I think they called animal control. Who,
But animal control like couldn't do anything about it. They're
They
like,
couldn't
we
get
don't want
it.
to deal with because
Yeah.
this
We
could
don't wanna
be
get
someone's
cussed out.
pet, right?
I think it got.
A lot of feelings were hurt because this crow was just
This
blasting
crow is
people.
hurting my feelings.
Oh, what the heck?
So yeah, like was somebody missing this? Like, hey,
It's like a trained.
do you put that on
animal?
Facebook? Like, hey guys, I'm missing my crow. If you see him,
Don't
he,
mind his words.
he cusses at you and he talks. Like, and he might eat your food. He's hungry.
Wait, so what happened? This flew away?
I think did his owner come get it? Or?
Yeah, either that or it flew away.
The bow and arrow.
so if
right
I wake up
Yeah.
to hearing a crow cuss at me, I'll know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
state
you'll
police
think
are-
you're dreaming or something.
Yeah.
That's some crazy
Isn't
stuff
that
right
hilarious?
there. I had no idea.
The old cussing crow. Yeah, that's
How
Revelation.
was that
somewhere.
not like front page of the Courier for 3 weeks?
Yeah.
They're like, hey, nothing big, more COVID testing. But if you heard about the crow, so
Wow.
Cussing crow strikes again. Joe, this is blowing Joe's
That just
mind.
blew my
imagine-
mind. Girls can talk.
imagine being a parent and
I'd be
like,
so mad.
Hey, how was your
Like,
day?
bro.
Well, this crow came and cussed at us.
I learned some new words.
Yeah, you're like, what are you smoking, kid?
Oh,
like, no.
man.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's good.
So many questions right now. Okay.
Joe, top that.
No, mine was kind of more serious. It was sad. I was looking at, so Google does like a year in review. They have this beautiful like outlay of like month by month kind of like highlights of the year, like whether it's news articles, things that were most Googled or like most searched for on the internet. Really interesting. And oh, by the way, did you know that TikTok just overpowered Google for the most used website on the internet?
Oh.
15-year, Google had the 15-year reign,
Wow.
and TikTok is beating them currently. What? Where am I
Makes
living?
sense.
Cussing crows and TikTok. Are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Kids aren't on Google. They're on TikTok.
No, seriously. It is, but it's wild to think. Anyway, sorry, I'm fascinated by that. But one of their news headlines, one of the most searched for things in 2021 was how to be happy alone. And I wonder, I was thinking like, why would that be trending? But then you think about coming out of like 2020 and still going through 2021 in some states, in some parts of the country and in the world where lockdowns were still very much at play, like, how do I just be happy alone? And I was like, wow, interesting. The hunger for community is in the depth of the soul of every human, right? And we believe that as Christians. But I think a lot of people outside of the Christian community would say, oh, I don't need people. And very individualistic society here in America, this almost like contradicts that whole theory that like we are just created beings for ourselves, but we're created for each other. We're created for a higher power, higher God, right? And so just interesting that was the the third most searched how-to on Google this year, how to be happy alone.
Wow.
That was fascinating.
Yeah, that is. Huh.
I wonder what the results, like the top results were for it.
I didn't click it, but I should
Yeah,
maybe
like
now.
Oregon.
After I go to TikTok and look
Yeah.
at the cussing crow.
Yeah. It is fascinating though how people are getting their information. So
Yeah.
if I want to look something up, I'm going to go to Google, probably Wikipedia. Like if find out something about somebody, others will go to Instagram, but then like the younger generations, they'll find out their information on TikTok, and it's
TikTok
like,
and YouTube, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, in years past, you would ask your grandparents, your parents these questions, or go to the
Tom
library.
Mechanic.
or I'd
Yeah,
ask
right.
Jeeves if any of us remember
Whoa,
asking Jeeves.
that's the internet still, bro.
I remember
yeah.
that.
But no, you're right. And now we ask other people. So.
Wow.
No, yes, the internet, yeah.
So for me, yeah, I have been fascinated. You're seeing more, and I'd say like it didn't just start in this last year, but you're seeing more professional athletes step away from their sport or their craft or whatever they've been devoting their lives to on pretty high stages because of mental health. I think Naomi Osaka, that one was pretty wild because she's one of the top tennis players, does not want to talk to the media, and is like, I think it was the French Open, and they were like, you're going to get fined if you don't talk to the media. Like, let's disregard why you're doing this. She said it was like mental health. And so she's like, no, and then she ended up withdrawing. And like, I know people came out and were like, we're paying your fines for you. Simone Biles in the Olympics, which we had
that's
2021 Olympics this year. the biggest stage, like
Right.
literally probably maybe her last one, and just like you're representing your country. Country is on your shoulders, and she has like what I would call the strength to be like, this isn't the best for my well-being to step down. Receives so much hate in the football world. We're seeing it. Calvin Ridley, one even this technically is 2022. But there was a player, Antonio Brown, who I'm wondering if it's selfishness or sickness, but like maybe what happens when you don't step away. You just
For those who don't know, he literally took off his pads, his helmet,
In
his
the middle
shirt,
of the
his
game.
gloves, threw his stuff into the stands basically, and walked off the field
and waved at everyone
and like waved like bye bye, I'm quitting football in the middle of the game.
Yeah, middle of the
Not like
game.
the post game, like middle of the game.
Dude's had had a lot
That
of
was
off-field
interesting.
problems, several chances. Best situation he could be in for a football player, and he just pieces out. And by the end of the game, he's no longer on the team.
Right.
So like that's the other side of it, but you're just seeing it more, and it was a lot of headlines. And
interesting, yeah.
I'd be curious as why, because like if you're like, especially if you have a contract with a professional league and you just quit, like you're paying, like you're eating something when it comes to money.
Sure.
Millions of dollars. You're not getting certain bonuses. You're not getting certain things. So it's not like people are just doing this out of privilege. Like they are weighing the cost and saying like, I need to take care of myself.
Sure.
So it's been fascinating. I'm curious to see how that goes into 2022. I was curious as to the why, but it just sounds like there's more resources presented to athletes, not famous athletes, but athletes in general. So cool to see. I mean, but yeah. So that was my favorite, my probably most intriguing headline for 2021, and we'll see how it goes in 2022.
2021.
But we are wrapping up. We've hit that just about hour mark. Any final thoughts?
I guess on news stories, I would just encourage listeners to not just watch or listen to your like main news network. Like I've been doing more reading of like The Atlantic and of Guardian and other newspapers online. I don't like get the newspaper, and if you do, okay, that's fine, I guess. But yeah, I encourage people to just look into different or pick up a different book that you wouldn't normally read. Like I've been encouraged myself just to by someone encouraged me to read in different areas and read on different things, and even if you don't agree with what you're reading, like open up your mind a little. I think it's important. So yeah.
Yeah, I think something I used to do, and I think there's just better avenues than this now, but I had the Fox News app and the CNN app, and so like headlines would come up and they both would like say things, and you would just at the very minimum you'd be
Sounds like torture.
you would and I wouldn't necessarily suggest, like I would go with what you're going. I wouldn't suggest people to those news outlets first, but like you just see how different things say different headlines, and it was like getting the other side of it. Because if you feel really passionate about way, I take Natalie's advice, see what the other side has to say about it, and it's hard. It's gonna make you feel weird, but it's like it's very good for you, I think. So yeah. So you said you are reading The Guardian and The Atlantic.
Oh, I just, we have our app, Scribd, and they have all kinds of different magazine articles. And so, I just go through. Read a great article yesterday on just children and transgenderism and all of that. And I just learned a lot. And so I think it's just important. Yeah. So you can go online and look up articles. It doesn't have to be on an app or whatever. So
Go online or TikTok.
Don't go to TikTok, actually.
All right. Well, you guys, thank you so much
you,
for
Tim.
joining me. Probably see you next year at the same time, a year from
sounds
now. Listeners, we will be back kind of unpacking. It's exciting to see what we got going on this weekend at the church services. So I will be back with, actually, I believe you and Tawny,
cool.
just kind of going over what we are talking about this weekend. So until then, see you next week.